Amar Reish Lakish, says Reish Lakish, describing those dramatic moments where the enemies of Klal Yisrael enter the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the heart of the Jewish people, the soul of our nation. Nichnesu nachrim lahecho ro kerubim hameurim zeh bazeh. They saw the kerubim sitting on top of the Aron, and they were embracing each other. Says the Gemara, Hotziam l'shuk, the enemies of the Jewish people remove the kerubim from the Mikdash, they bring them to the shuk, to the marketplace, and they announce for all to see, come and recognize the hypocrisy, the incongruency that exists amongst the Jewish people. That here they live their lives proclaiming the values of one God, and yet it seems that there are images of idolatry in their very Mikdash itself. And while the Gemara certainly raises certain questions about the nature of the kerubim and their function, there's an aspect of this Gemara that is quite striking. And that is, we know that the Gemara tells us elsewhere that the Torah depicts the image of the kerubim in two very different ways. In certain places, the Torah seems to indicate that the kerubim were facing each other, while in other aspects of the Torah seems to indicate that the kerubim faced away from each other. The Gemara resolves this seeming contradiction by explaining that when the Jewish people were comporting themselves, osim ritzono shel makom, when their behavior was consistent with the ideals and expectations of Torah, so then the kerubim would appear as an image of people that embraced each other. But when the Jewish people's behavior was inconsistent with the expectations of Torah, einam osim ritzono shel makom, then the kerubim would face away from each other. And the question is, why is it that when the enemies of Klal Yisrael enter the Kodesh HaKadoshim, that the image of the kerubim that they encounter are a kerubim that are embracing each other after all? At this moment of Churban, at this moment of destruction, isn't Am Yisrael guilty of behavior that would seemingly be inconsistent with the expectations of the Ribbono Shel Olam? Why are they meurim zeh bazeh? Why are they hugging each other? This is the question posed by the Bnei Yissaschar. The Bnei Yissaschar answers that while the Rishonim discuss whether or not perhaps in this particular circumstance this was an exception to the principle of the distinction as to when they are facing each other and when they are facing away from each other, that there's an entirely different possibility as well. That this moment when the enemies of Klal Yisrael enter the Mikdash, this is not a normative experience where the kerubim's behavior is a reflection of Klal Yisrael's behavior. This is the moment of Churban itself. This is the moment where the distance between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His people is about to be expanded astronomically. This is the moment where we don't focus on the behavior of Am Yisrael, but this is the moment where we focus on the nature of the relationship. And the nature of the relationship between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael is much deeper than just the expectations of our behavior. There's a certain sense of unconditional love, unconditional ava that exists between Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That even when we don't behave in the way the Ribbono Shel Olam expects us to, we are still banim lamakom. There is still a strong relationship there. And therefore, at these moments, like in any relationship, when there's about to be a great distance, when a husband is about to take a trip overseas, abroad, and there's about to be a great deal of time where there will be great distance between two people who care so much from each other, those moments preceding that distance, are the moments where the love and the connection is most intense. Those are the moments where you feel a closeness that you don't feel in the normative course of the relationship experience. And therefore, when the non-Jewish enemies enter the world of the Mikdash, and they see these kerubim embracing themselves, it is symbolic of the fact that before we go forth in the course of Jewish history, before this moment of Tisha B'Av, essentially sets us on a trajectory of distance between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That God is sending a message to the Jewish people that no matter where you go, and no matter how far you are, and no matter how far you drift, and no matter how difficult the circumstances are, whether they are physical wars in Eretz Yisrael or spiritual wars in the experience of Galus, no matter what, there's always a dimension of embrace. There's always a connection. I never really let you go. We're always really holding on to each other. And this is what we've seen in the experience of Klal Yisrael over the last many weeks. Experiences that really get to the core of who we are. And yet we have discovered in those great difficulties, in those great challenges, in those great tears, some of the most poignant connections between us and the Ribbono Shel Olam. Connections of Torah, connections of Tefillah, connections that reflect the Achdus of Klal Yisrael. And so as we prepare for Tisha B'Av, and as we experience the Bein HaMitzarim, yes, we are drawing closer to a moment, to an experience, where we capture what it means to be distant from the Ribono Shel Olam. But Tisha B'Av is also what is described as a Moed Shel Richuk. It's got a holiday dimension to it as well. Because in that distance is also the relentless commitment that exists between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's mutual. That He will never let go of us, and that we will never ever let go of Him. And so yes, the kerubim will always embrace, even through the dark world of Galus, as we will always embrace with the Ribono Shel Olam, no matter what challenges we face, as individuals, as families, and as a community.